This video is going to describe the IB MYP's global context in relation to units, community projects and personal projects. So the IB say that students learn best when their learning experiences have context and are connected to their lives and the experiences of the world that they have experienced. Using global context, MYP students develop an understanding of the common humanity and shared guardianship of the planet through developmentally appropriate explorations of the 6 global contexts. So what are they? Here are the 6 identities and relationships: personal and cultural expression, orientation in space and time, scientific and technical innovation, fairness and development, and globalization and sustainability. So when are they used? Every single unit must be connected to a global context. In MYP Year 3 and MYP Year 5, students will use a global context to steer their community or their personal project. A reminder that if you're a subject teacher, for your group or your subject, you should be trying to cover all 6 global contexts roughly equally throughout the 5 years. So if you're a science teacher, you shouldn't just be focusing on scientific and technical innovation. If you're an arts teacher, you shouldn't just be focusing on personal and cultural expression. You should be using all 6. So let's think about how they help create real-world connections. When I was at school, if we were doing a science unit about energy, we would have just learned about different sources of energy. We would not have learned about how it connects to the real world. Now imagine you're an MYP science teacher and you're doing an energy unit and you're using fairness and development. You might look at how the way we use energy impacts people around the world. You might think about the implications of fossil fuels. You might look at different companies or organisations or governments who have a vested interest in us not having clean energy. You might look at how we can provide energy to people in developing countries. There's a whole range of ways you might look at it. You might also you might do the unit but use orientation in space and time, in which case you might look at the history of how we use energy. You might look at different countries and see who's using the most clean energy. You might want to look at personal and cultural expression and have students think about how we can make renewable energy sources like wind energy farms or solar panels more aesthetically pleasing and desirable. You can actually explore this again through all 6 global contexts, so you would just pick one to steer your unit. And a reminder that the description and exploration is really important. Context means. So people often do this, they'll see the title, for example, identities and relationships, and they'll think they have their own description of what that is, and that's going to fit in. People in the IB also do this with learner profile attributes, but it's really important there to also look at the description. So imagine your current topic you're teaching or your current project you have in mind, thinking about how you'd use that through identities and relationships. You probably already have your own ideas in your head. But let's look at the explorations. So if you look at the description on the right, it's really important to make sure that the right one fits. Often students, especially when they're doing the personal project, they have just looked at the heading or maybe the description on the left and they've picked their global context. But when they actually look a bit deeper into these explorations, they'll see that actually their real focus and lens for their personal project is a completely different global context. I would say especially students get mixed up with personal and cultural expression and identities and relationships, so it's important to explore these together. Now let's look at how we could use the 6 global contexts for a project or units about cars. In these examples, I'm particularly thinking of a personal project, but you can think about your own versions for units or community project. We'll start with globalization and sustainability. Now what I want to do is pick out some of the words on the right and use that to actually create my goal for my project. You don't have to do this. I recommend it because teachers use this for their units. When they are creating their statement of inquiry, they use the global context. And also it really helps you to make sure that for your unit, for your personal community project, you really have got the right global context. So for globalization and sustainability, design a car that will have minimal negative impact on the environment. So here you can see the words that are in grey are directly taken from the description. So if you look at the third exploration down, it says human impact on the environment. And again, in the description on the left, it says the impact of decision making on humankind and the environment. So this project where I'm making maybe a solar powered car will definitely link to that global context. Now if we look at scientific and technical innovation, I might pick out a different word from here, maybe adaptation, which is in the second exploration down. So adapt a remote control car so that it can be controlled by an app. So if this was my personal project, you'd see a lot of the learning is about the science and technical ways I would have to do this. So using that word adaptation, I've made sure it really does link to scientific and technical innovation. Next, let's look at identities and relationships. And the word I'm going to pick out would be cultural identity, beliefs and values. So explore how cultural identity, beliefs and values impact car design. So we could look at everything from red pickup trucks in the US through to Mini Coopers of Union Jacks in the UK. Orientation in space and time. So for this project, I would look at how cars have evolved over time, so a real timeline of how cars have evolved. And you can find those words hidden away in here as well. Next, personal and cultural expression. So I'm going to use the artistry, craft, creation, and beauty, that first exploration. And my goal would be how can I use artistry to design a highly desirable but affordable car. So here the learning wouldn't be about building a car, it would be about really making a car that's aesthetically pleasing so that people would want to buy it, and doing that with the blueprint on the people end. So again, personal and cultural expression, and using that word is how we do that. Now we're going to look at fairness and development. Now looking at the explorations on the side, I'm picking out inequalities and communities. So how can I design a car share program which will allow car owners to lessen inequalities by providing rides to vulnerable people in their communities? So think about a free Uber. And again, those words are taken from the description. So if you want ways to explore global context or check for understanding, you could pick a topic, maybe your personal project or community project you have in mind, or maybe a unit you're currently doing, and you could see how it would look different through all 6 global contexts. Another activity to do would be to cut out the global context with a description, and then cut out each of the explorations. If you did this for all 6 and then mix them up in a table, you could then try and match them to the correct one. You could also print out articles, photos of products, book covers, etc. and match the appropriate global context. This could be a fun thing to do in the library, where you think about each global context for each book. You could really make this relevant to news articles by thinking of the different global contexts to explore the meaning or the importance behind different news articles, or different products, photographs that really relate to your topic. Lastly, here's a link to the general overview from the IB about curriculum, which has some information about global context. You can also find more in the various publications, including the project guide and your subject guides. I have some information on my blog. All images that have been used in this presentation or video have been taken from Flat Icon or from my global context posters, also available on my blog.